There was a time before. Not to be confused with the Before Time article, which is of a more recent past. This one goes back a bit further and concerns electricity, high prices, bills, and the current orchestrated cost of living crisis which looms over the country. From one emergency to another, eh? Don't get me wrong, we are in an emergency, just not the one they say we are in, which is neatly distracting everyone from what they are up to and have done being the cause of the problem. While paying attention over the years, I noted that they seem pretty keen on blocking up old fireplaces and building new houses without them. I thought then it seemed folly. What if there was a grid issue, or we couldn't produce electricity for whatever reason? I grew up without central heating as a constant, and we relied sometimes on an open fire or bottled gas heaters when we didn't have it, so it seemed an obvious thing to keep, from my point of view, as a manual backup for a weak, overloaded system which at some point would surely fail, or be restricted. And here we are, and not quite by accident, I must say. There is a reason they took away people's ability to heat their own homes, and are looking to impose further regulations and restrictions on wood burners and fires. Do you see the pattern yet? So let's go back to the not too distant past, where we didn't have electricity running freely into every home and being available at the flick of a switch. Everything still worked, albeit by different means and at a different pace, but we had shops, pubs and inns, hotels, houses, industry and commerce. So I find it quite strange how suddenly we are being told, and quite incorrectly I might add, that we must cut back and not have enough power to fuel or provide heat, or enough to grow food or transport. All those things revolving around their quota of carbon output, which they invented and decided the scale for, by the way, fixing the system to their own advantage, as has been done for a rather long time now. So how is it that for many centuries, without constant electricity and invention of all these electrical gadgets and conveniences, did people manage to sustain themselves? How did villages, towns and cities thrive and go on to build huge empires? Quite the mystery. Yet now we have this wonderful thing called electricity. We are going down the pan, fighting amongst ourselves repeatedly and in more elaborate ways, and using it to enslave humanity within a digital prison. It doesn't sound very advanced to me, just presenting the illusion of being so, to trick people into thinking because it is digital and technological, then it must be progressive, when clearly it is not so. It's being used for destructive purposes and not for advancement at all. Instead, it is being used for enslavement. Electricity was our first tether, seemingly followed by the wires, cables, phones, etc. Now we have wireless, we are led to believe that electricity is actually now just all around us, without the need for cables and wires at all, making it seem more open. Still tethered though. But to them, they who provide the access to it, gatekeep it, charge you for it, bind you to it. They want everything dependent on it. In their world, you will need to have food, shelter, employment, friends, and generally what they call a life. But in reality, you don't need it for any of those things. They can all be achieved through manual ways and means. It's just easier and more convenient to use electrical machinery and systems, or at least it was. The goalposts have changed, dramatically, and so must our thinking towards it. What they show as the future is rather sterile, ordered and emotionless, more like a simulation of a life, but without something very important: reality. Which sounds odd, I know. How could you possibly have a life without it being reality? It seems you can. By way of their virtual augmented future plans, it's easily done. But we have already started to slip towards it through living online, being heavily integrated with online systems and procedures already. It's an alternate reality being constructed around us, slowly and piece by piece. My article, It Was a Piece at a Time, shows how it can be done without people even noticing. So by the time it switches, you know no different and accept the almost seamless slip from one reality into the next, as it seems somewhat familiar by now. It does appear as though their entire future is based upon electricity and the need for it. Without it, none of their systems work. The digital IDs and scan QR passes into every establishment wouldn't work. The constant monitoring online and cameras wouldn't work. The ability to beam propaganda into every home and TV screen wouldn't work. Their omnipotent illusion just wouldn't hold up without it, and the strange future they seem to have planned for countries by way of control through these mechanisms seems wholly dependent on it. A key to their success perhaps. Without it, the whole system fails. But society and people can thrive without it, and certainly can when it isn't being used as a weapon against us. Power means power, literally.